Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the VD Racing League podcast. I'm Nedzo here, and we will bring you some great content to talk about, well, the best sim racing league in the world, at least in my humble opinion. And we'll also talk about real life Formula One and any other things that are going on that are important in the world of motorsport. I'm joined by Will and two of our most esteemed drivers, Kevin Van Dyke and Stay Daisy. So yeah, come on, guys. Let's introduce yourselves. How are you doing? Let's start with Will first off.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's me. Once again, it's Will. I'm very good. I'm quite excited for this podcast journey and how it will go. We've got plenty of things to talk about as well, and we've got two amazing drivers as well. One, a six-time champion, and one soon-to-be champion, I'm sure, in one season as well. But, I mean, I'm very, very well, and I'm very excited to hear what all the other drivers have to say about all the upcoming rounds as well.
Kevin, let's go to you now. How are you doing on this fine day, and how are you doing after your previous race in Las Vegas?
I'm doing fine. I'm practicing almost all day. The next track is Bahrain. I really like it, and Las Vegas. The previous race was really bad for me because I made a mistake. I braked too late and hit Tias, and I got a penalty, 5-second time penalty for that. So I dropped from P5 to P11 in the final results. I lost like 20 points to Tias, but I will try to do my best to win the next race.
You will, and you've been in the doldrums, we can say, in the past couple of seasons. You haven't won a title in a while. What is it that's happened this year that has allowed you to properly assert yourself, especially against guys like Tiaz, Ruben, Toro, who previously were either equal to you or regularly ahead of you?
To be honest, I never really focused on the races. That's why I always had bad pace in the races. I practiced like 1 or 2 races every week, and previously I only drove in TT time trial, and I think that hurt my race pace a lot, because in the race you have to adapt to the circumstances, and that's probably my biggest weakness. That's why I'm really good in quali, because the conditions are always the same. Mostly, only if it rains, then it's different. But yeah, so I'm working basically at my adaptive, how I can adapt to the circumstances.
That's a fair way of looking at things. And going over to State Daisy, obviously you didn't take part in the Las Vegas Grand Prix, but you did take part last season, and that was nearly the first. I think it was nearly the first win of your VD Racing League career. So talk me through. Obviously, you have to talk about Las Vegas, especially because you didn't race this year. But how are you looking for? Are you looking for for a good result if you come along in Bahrain?
Yeah, especially for a good result in Bahrain, because been practicing quite a bit, feeling pretty confident, and the same wasn't in Las Vegas because had a pretty good pace around it actually, and everything. Don't really got a lot of talking points about it, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is pretty reasonable. It is a good track, to be fair, Las Vegas, and obviously we did our league race on the same weekend that F1 in real life went to the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and it's a good track to go to in leagues, especially on F1 25, because the problem was on previous games you could overtake way too easily. I suppose the dirtier on this game has made it better. But obviously, the next track we're going to is Bahrain. Is the Bahrain International Circuit hosted its first F1 race in 2004, but we're going to be going there, and that can be quite an interesting circuit for league racing as well, because obviously you've got a lot of heavy braking zones, a lot of DRS zones. How do you two? This is a question to both Kevin and Stay Daisy. We'll go to Kevin first. How do you think it's going to be different on this game compared to previous games? Because obviously, as I said, you have new dirtier, you have new ERS. Things that we haven't gone here since last year's game. Do you think it's going to be a different strategy? For example, 2 stops even in play, or do you think that it's going to be a lot similar than it was last year than maybe you'd expect normally?
I think the timer will definitely be higher than last year's game. And I think there will be less of a DRS train than the previous game, purely because of the dirty air, and there is no slipstream also in the game. But I think it will be an interesting race. I think still it will be a great fight to watch, the battle for the win. So yeah, and I think that you can. Actually, it's one of the tracks where you can actually overtake because of the long straights. So, and there are 2 DRS zones. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunities to overtake.
I will just correct you and say there are 3 DRS zones at Bahrain.
3?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I forgot there are 2 in the first sector. Yeah.
Yes. And Stay Daisy, obviously, if you are going to be competing in Bahrain, I think it's good to know what your perspective is on the race as well.
Well, for me, and think about Bahrain, I had some league races beforehand on this game and everything, and even though with the higher where is like higher this year, I do believe it will be mostly a one stop. But yeah, overtake is possible. It is a pretty fun track and everything.
Yeah, it indeed is. And I mean, I'm not sure, Will, if you have much experience commentating on races in Bahrain, obviously, because you haven't done it in this league. But what do you like? Obviously, I know you haven't got as much experience as driving it as these guys will have. But what is it like to watch a race around a circuit like the Bahrain International Circuit?
It's incredible, really. The action it provides as well is just, I know, it's just incredible, really. To even commentate on the DRS straights are the main thing, and I always love to mention, I'm sure you guys remember this as well, the DRS train is my favourite word to say in the VD Racing League. Just because it's, the main thing that keeps it all alive, but in 2026 it's obviously all going now, which I'm sure we'll talk about later as well. But yeah, no, it's, I mean, I'd love to drive it as well, but sadly don't have the game, so I'm more on the commentating side, joining Nedzo, and plenty of the other commentators as well. But I mean, yeah, Nedzo, same for you. You must love Bahrain as well for the action.
Well, the thing is, obviously, I can look at it from both a driver's perspective and a commentator's perspective because I do a bit of both, or at least I try to. To be honest, especially in league racing, obviously, from game to game, it's hit and miss because some games are really good for overtaking. Like last year's game, we saw it was fantastic, and it was even, in fact, a bit too overpowered. And you'd have like 10 drivers in a DRS train, and all of them have a chance of winning, and it's a bit ridiculous. I think this year's game is a lot more measured and it's a lot more realistic with the dirty air, and this is what you guys have been saying. And I do tend to agree. Bahrain is one of my weaker circuits, especially when I'm driving, because I've been learning no TC recently, or I've been playing on no TC recently, and with all the low speed traction zones, it can take a while to adapt. But yeah, it's a nice track to drive. It's a nice track to drive. It's one of the modern circuits where it doesn't feel too artificial. It doesn't feel like they're trying to manufacture too many racing situations with like awkward tight corners. I mean, there are tight corners, but they have character, and they're not just boring 90 degrees or constant radius corners. They actually are kind of nice to drive, which I do appreciate. But yeah, if we move into, we'll move into the kind of predictions section for this little section. Obviously, we want to predict who's going to do well, who's going to do less so. I think again we'll go to Kevin because he's usually up near the front and he can gauge just how good his performance will be as well as anyone who's around him. Who do you expect in that title battle? Let's just say between Tiaz and between Toro, because you three are the main 3 guys in the title fight. Who do you think is going to have the upper hand here?
To be honest, I expect both of them to be really fast, but I think Tiaz, especially in the races, I think he will be a huge opponent. But yeah, I think in quali, I think I will have the upper hand. I think I will be faster than them because I really like this track. So yeah, I think it will be a really interesting race.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair way to look at. Do you think that there's anyone? Obviously, you've got guys who are like perennial midfielders, guys like Remus, guys like Nikos. Do you think we're going to see any surprises if you? Because obviously you've been here since basically season one. You know how all the guys perform at these circuits. Is there anyone who's going to be a dark horse maybe because they like the track?
Yeah, maybe someone like Stay Daisy. I don't know if he likes this track a lot, but and Nicholson maybe. Yeah, sometimes he's good, sometimes not. And the last few races, I'm thinking about people. Let me check who are racing this week.
Very prepared. He's done his research, as you can see.
Botti, I think he will be fast.
Yes.
And his brother Barney he's also fast. So I think those guys will be at the front. So yeah.
Indeed, we heard you mention State Data's name there. I think it's perfect to move straight over to him. What are your predictions for this? Obviously, you're usually more in the midfield, but who do you expect to be fighting against?
Who am I supposed to be fighting against? This will be kind of hard to tell, like race to race, especially for this one, because if I'm thinking about it, I'm hoping I'd be like around P5, hopefully, but kind of unexpected because driver performances changes race to race and everything, so kind of hard to really get an exact wording on that, but yeah, I don't really have any names personally.
Yeah, that is fair enough. So I think with that, I mean, we've covered most of the stuff that's going to happen in the league. At least, unless Will wants to add anything, we can go to him. Actually, do you have any predictions, Will?
Well, pretty much the drivers have already said them. Botti is a driver, and obviously, as he said, his brother Barney. Both incredible drivers. We saw Botti really show himself in Miami, coming out for, I think, literally the last 5 minutes in qualifying and setting a pole position. So, I mean, that definitely put something up against Kevin. I mean, Kevin, you, I'm sure you remember that one, and he came out nowhere, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he won the last race, so he's. I think he will be a huge threat in Bahrain. But yeah, and also his brother in China. I think his brother finished P4, something like that. So they are really, really fast. So it's nice to see some new guys who are quick.
It definitely is. I mean, another driver I like to talk about, and we don't talk about him much actually in the comments box, is Remus. So Remus has been with us for a while, and he's like a Nikos on Ned. So he comes in at points that we don't expect him to come in and snatch possibly a podium. That's the one thing we don't mention about Remus, and that's really I think he's an incredible driver. So hopefully we can see him perform a miracle, possibly getting on the podium, possibly getting a win as well. From obviously coming up into Bahrain. He is quick around Bahrain. I think you're trying to remember as we go on to the standings. Actually, the last time we were racing in 2024, not 2024, the F1 game in 2024, and Remus finished 5th then. So he's had good pace, but so far it always looks like Tiaz Korsman actually. Sorry, this isn't Bahrain. This is America. So this was Las Vegas that we just came back from. I mean, Kevin is the main guy for that one. But anyway, yeah, Botti up for the top of that one. And that's really all we're expecting. But Toro, I think that's the main three. And maybe a surprise. I always like to see a surprise in P3, but I'm sure Nedzo may have different opinions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that when you're talking about guys, like you mentioned guys like Remus and Co. I think Remus could do something, but then again, it is just, as Daisy said, on driver performance. And it's not like, from memory, Remus doesn't have any particularly strong circuits where he's just like better than he is on any other track. But going back to Botti, Botti is a very interesting driver because it's clear that his one lap pace is fantastic. It's probably, I'd argue, it's the best of anyone in the league, along with Kevin. But the thing is, like we make fun of Kevin for his constant bottles and the fact that the amount of silly mistakes he's made. But Botti's sort of similar because he just sometimes Like in Miami, the amount of times that I saw him just make silly, daft lunges that ended up ruining his race. Like for every good race in Las Vegas, it seems he has like a good racing or good qualifying session, and then he just falls back because of his own errors. He does in some ways remind me of someone like a Pastor Maldonado, where he's clearly got bucket loads of pace, but he doesn't always use it. And I mean, if he can do well in Bahrain and not push beyond the limits, he will be good. But he'll need to not push the limits, and that's what the problem he has really. I would say my podium predictions for Bahrain, or my predictions for the guys at the top will definitely be Tiaz, Kevin, Toro are always going to be up there, and I will put Botti in as a kind of a dark horse pick if he can actually keep the car together. But I think with that, I think we've exhausted and we've talked about the VD Racing League, and we talked about what this league entails and what it's going to entail in the final 4 rounds, I believe, of the season. I will just say, by the way, just to cover off the standings, I believe that Kevin has around a 20-point gap. Yes, a 25-point gap heading into these final 4 rounds in Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Austria, and the Netherlands. I mean, Toro is a bit further back, is 79 points away. So obviously, in a system where you get 50 points for a win, he's going to have to basically win every single one of the final 4 races and have unfavorable results to the guys in front of him. So I think it is mainly between Kevin and Tiaz. But yeah, with that, I think we can move to real life F1. So as I said, at the same weekend that we went to Las Vegas, they went to Las Vegas. Obviously, they were copying us, and we saw lots of action. We saw some crashes. We saw some crashes at Turn 1, as we always do at Las Vegas, because it seems that no one knows what a brake pedal is. We saw initially Lando Norris pretty much wrapping up the title, and then he lost it, and then both him and Oscar Piastri get disqualified. It's possibly. This could end up being the craziest title in F1 history if a certain someone in the Red Bull manages to claw it back and win it. But yeah, Will, what are your opinions on? Well, the McLaren disqualification is the elephant in the room, but what are your opinions on the current F1 climate overall?
Well, F1 is full of surprises. That's, I think, the main thing to say. At least Max Verstappen can produce some sort of miracle, and I'm sure. I was about to say the old team principal, but we won't mention that one anymore, as I'm sure that's the least of our worries now. But yeah, no, the McLaren's it didn't really show, and it was a tiny thing as well. It wasn't like a huge difference. It was honestly just a tire. I'm trying to remember what it exactly was, but it was absolutely tiny, and just that tiny bit obviously caused both of the McLarens to get disqualified. But I'm sure It was basically the wooden plank on their cars was worn down too much at the end of a race. Basically, they brought the wooden plank in at the start of a 1994 season to stop drivers to stop the cars from bottoming out, hitting the ground, because that's unsafe. And so they put a limit on to stop people riding the cars way too low so that they'd hit the ground. And essentially they've gone too low. And there's only been like a handful of times in F1 history that people have actually been disqualified for illegal plank wear. There was a period of, I think it was 28 years between between when Schumacher got it at the 1995 Belgian Grand Prix, when he won from 17th place. 1994 Belgian Grand Prix, when he won it from when he won the race, and then it took like 29 years, and then Hamilton and Leclerc got it at the 2023 race at COTA. So, and now we've had it quite a few times in the last couple of years, because teams are trying to ride as close to the ground as possible with these ground effect cars, because that's where you get the most downforce. And it does just cause them to make. But what surprises me is that, yes, they were fighting for a win and they were fighting for third place or whatever. That Oscar was in the top 5. Both of them have pretty much, they've wrapped up the Constructors' title. If they'd have just settled for, let's say, 3rd or 4th place with a slower car by putting the downforce down, that would still be better points than getting disqualified for riding too close to the ground. I don't see why they'd risk something like that, especially with the rumours that the FIA have been clamping down on cars riding too low to the ground. I'm not sure if either Kevin or Stay Daisy have anything to add, but it's weird how McLaren doesn't know how to, make an F1 car anymore, even though it's the fastest.
Yeah, I also in the race saw a lot of sparks coming from Oscar's car. I don't know if you guys saw it, but yeah, it's very strange because I think in Brazil, in the sprint, after the sprint, sorry, Oscar was complaining that they changed the ride height. I think in Brazil because of the grooves. I think in the track. Because the plank was wearing too much, and Oscar was complaining about the car that it was not to his liking, and I think that's why he was a little bit off the pace in Brazil, because he has I think a different driving style than Lando. So sorry. The last year he was also struggling in this part of the season, but yeah, I find it really strange actually the title swing between Piastri and Norris. I think that it's I have never seen this before. Like Oscar was so consistently performing at a high level, and now he's nowhere near Norris at the moment.
No, I think that links. Oh, go on, sir.
I was about to say that is definitely the case. What I was just going to say is that, I mean, to your point about driving styles, Lando is definitely known as being a more aggressive driver. But Oscar, we've seen this from his 2023 and 2024 seasons. He struggles a lot on low grip circuits. He struggles a lot on circuits where you don't have much downforce. Tracks like, for example, Mexico, where they have to run Monaco level wing spec just to get around the circuit because of the altitude that the circuit is at. Vegas, obviously, although again they run skinny low wings because of the massive long back straight. But and that's exemplified, and that's made worse by the fact that it's really cold, and that decreases rear grip a lot. And that's part of a reason. Obviously, he didn't do well in Singapore after his incident with Lando at turn 1. He didn't do well in Baku, which isn't a particularly low grip circuit. But yeah, it is definitely one of the worst title collapses in history. I wouldn't put it. See, even this is what I've been saying. Even Mark Webber in 2010, people talk about that as a championship bottle. Apart from Korea and the final race in Abu Dhabi, where he lost out due to strategy, he didn't really make many mistakes. And meanwhile, Oscar, in like at least 3 or 4 of the last couple of races, has made consistent errors and has not finished on the podium in all of those races, which is just, it's so strange for someone to go from being so consistent, so accurate, and when we were clowning on Norris because he was the one making mistakes, it was a Piastri that was doing well, and now, I mean, there have been rumours that McLaren have been directing the car development towards Norris's driving style. I mean, that could hold some merit, especially with just how Oscar's not just lost his pace, but lost his consistency. It could be the case, but I'm not sure what you have to say on that, Will.
Yeah, I mean that is the main thing. McLaren have been the most interesting team. The ins and out of the team really all season. When I saw the beginning of the season, I did not want to think that Lando Norris would be leading it with, I think it's only 2 rounds, or I think it's 2 rounds left to go of the season.
2 rounds.
Yes, I did not think that Lando Norris would be leading, but watching the highlights, because I did not get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch the Formula One, I was pretty shocked. I mean, it's not as if Norris gained an advantage or Norris or Piastri gained any kind of advantage, because obviously Max still won up with, I think, 19 seconds up the road, so there's nothing to deter any of that. Obviously he overtook Russell, but that might have just been out of sheer pace and everything. But I think the standings are possibly just the most important thing, obviously, to continue. They've already taken the constructors. It is all just eyes on if will Lando Norris. To me, he's not an aggressive driver. He's got consistency, but it's not aggressive. And Piastri, I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm surprised he's staying with them next year. Really, with everything that's been happening with papaya rules and everything like that, I'm genuinely shocked he's staying there. And I can possibly either next season see him move to another team, just because, as Neto was saying, it's been built around the Lando Norris's liking, basically. Same with Red Bull with Max Verstappen. So Yuki Tsunoda's obviously missed out quite a bit on that as well, and all the other drivers as well. But yeah, go on, Neto.
I was just going to say, I mean, there have been a couple of rumours about that Piastri could go to Ferrari or he could go to other teams, and I mean, I could see it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Norris's style is definitely on the aggressive side. I will just say that it's definitely on the, because usually you see that in the tire warm up, and in these low grip circuits, aggressive drivers tend to do better because they are able to swing the car around and they're able to control the car on that ragged edge, and they know what it's like to be on that ragged edge. Whereas your smooth drivers, this is why, like for example, Jenson Button always used to struggle in on certain circuits, and he always used to have a really narrow setup window. And that meant he was quite inconsistent, despite being quite a smooth driver, ironically. But then again, I suppose I think it's all relative, because Norris is obviously very good in the wet, and you kind of need to be a smooth driver to be good in the wet, unless your name is Ayrton Senna or Michael Schumacher, and then you're aggressive and you're amazing in the wet. I don't know, maybe, but yeah, it's definitely the case that well, Norris and Piastri both this season have made way too many mistakes. Like, even though Norris has had a very good run of form recently, it's made people forget just how error-prone he was at the start of the season. Saudi Arabia crashing out of qualifying, Canada, Baku. I mean, even I know I wasn't earlier, but that was more recent. But even then, like, he didn't capitalize on Piastri crashing out of the race, and it was embarrassing. But yeah, it's funny that Piastri and Verstappen are on equal points now after their after the disqualifications, and we're not even considering Piastri for the title. Yet people are considering Verstappen as a potential threat to Norris, even in these last two races. And no one really considered Piastri a threat even before this race, and it's just because he's fallen off so quickly. Like, as I said, no podiums since the Italian Grand Prix. Yeah, and it's not good enough from either McLaren driver. And I mean, it's pretty obvious to anyone that Verstappen has been the best driver this season.
Yeah, I think Verstappen only made one mistake this season. That was in Spain, and even that wasn't his fault, actually. I mean, he shouldn't drive into Russell, but I think yeah, that was probably his only mistake of the season. And the rest of the races, I think he maximized every race, I think.
I gotta agree with that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The worst part is, if you look at the off-board shot of that Spain incident with Russell, makes it look horrible on him. It makes it look like he's just clattered straight into the side of him. But if you look at the onboard, it's a lot. It makes it look a lot more like Max hasn't sent it on the inside. He's actually kept very close to the apex, and he's actually pretty clean. It's just that because of the off-board shot making it look 10 times worse, and everyone likes to follow what they want to follow, that they choose to say that Verstappen's been aggressive. Yeah, Verstappen has produced very rare errors this season. Obviously, he had the spin in Silverstone. Some put that down to his low downforce settings, because he was running low wings in that race, because in qualifying they ran a low downforce setup. But yeah, it's definitely been the case. Verstappen's been the better driver this season. He's been the best driver in Formula One since at least 2019. And yeah, I mean, let me just go back to our list of topics just to check if I am missing anything.
Do you want to butt in? I was just going to say, this is Verstappen's. This isn't his first rodeo. Let's just say that he has been in this situation before, tied on points, fighting for the championship. 2021, but this time obviously he's in third place, and I think he was in the lead in the 2021 version. But I mean, he's had experience with this. Lando Norris, not so much. Oscar Piastri as well. He's not had. They've not had this experience of the intense moments of trying to win this drivers' championship. So Verstappen, out of all those guys, is the most experienced, and as Nez was saying, probably one of the best at the moment. So it's just really, really going to be exciting, and what's going to come, and how McLaren are going to try and work their way up. If it will be more of a defensive strategy from Oscar for the rest of the season, trying to hold up Verstappen if he knows that he can't win the championship, or will it be, I don't know, it could be a free-for-all kind of thing, that it's Zach Brown just wants them to let them race. I mean, that's just all to call for the rest of the season.
I think it definitely is. I will just say that if McLaren do enact team orders and tell Piastri to help Norris win the title, then there's a chance that he leaves his contract early, because that would be a disgrace, in my opinion. There's no way you can tell a guy who's been fighting for a title the entire season and is less than a race wins points away from winning the title. If you tell him you're not allowed to fight for this title, that would be utterly ridiculous in my opinion, especially when Norris could finish second in all of the races going in the season. The Qatar race and the Qatar sprint and Abu Dhabi, he could finish second in all of them and he'd still win the title by 6 or 7 points. So it's not more than that, 8 or 9 points. So he could just do a Rosberg in 2016, just get enough points, and then towards the end of the year, just finish second behind Lewis, and you're fine. You've got your title. So if McLaren do tell Oscar you have to give up to Lando, that'll be stupid, because then he will just leave the team, or he will be completely demoralized next year and produce no performances because he knows that he's just going to be held back. But yeah, it is definitely the case that it's going to be interesting regardless, even though Lando pretty much has it wrapped up. We said that heading into Las Vegas, and now somehow it's not. So if things keep holding him back, then it could definitely be on the more exciting side.
Well, I have to say also, for the Drive to Survive, this is going to be incredible. I already know that the Netflix are wetting their pants, knowing that they have got a hell of a few more episodes to go, and this will probably be one of the best. Well, obviously, minus the 2021, but they will love this a lot, especially with the rivalry between two drivers. But that's the thing with Drive to Survive. They do a lot of things that aren't right. They make enemies out of each other, which aren't really happening as well. So that's the other bit. I mean, I've watched that too much. I think I'd say that don't get into F1 just because you've watched Drive to Survive. Let's just put that, and claim you know every single fact as well. That's the last bit you want to hear from other people, especially.
I mean, I've been watching F1 since like F1 2015. So I started, my first race was Monaco 2015. And then back then I was a big fan of Mercedes and Rosberg. And I really liked those cars. I really liked the Mercedes, the painting of that car. And yeah, I think those cars looked way cleaner than now. I don't like those big cars. I'm actually quite happy next year that we will go away and we will do. They will have new regulations, and hopefully the racing will be better.
Yeah, I think we can all hope the racing is better than what it currently is. It's because modern Formula One cars, they're too grippy, they're too fast, they're too heavy, and if we make them smaller and make them less grippy, they're going to become better. But this is what we saw. This is why they brought in groove tires, to make the cars slower and to make them more on edge. This is why they it's why they should be getting rid of hybrids, or at least bringing in something that counteracts the weight of hybrids. Because if you were to bring back old normal combustion engines without any sort of hybrid technology, and you were to bring back refueling, that would probably reduce the car weight by about 150 kilograms, and it would instantly bring us back to the levels of like 2010 levels of car weight, and that would just make the cars so much more agile, so much more nimble, and drivers would have to fight the cars a lot more, and it would make it a lot more interesting. But yeah, I mean, we were asked before this podcast before it started, to come up with some debates or some topics. Now, I will actually throw one out there, because we're on the topic of Las Vegas, we're on the topic of F1 currently. I'd actually argue that Las Vegas is currently the best American track in Formula One.
Over Coda.
I was literally about to say I'm ready to counter this argument. Right, COTA it's been on the F1 calendar for ages, obviously definitely longer than Las Vegas. It's just got so much more action. Las Vegas, it's more about how you can set up your car well. Obviously that's the same at COTA, but the thing is, you've got to be very careful around Las Vegas, because it's a street circuit at the end of the day. You're on most of the main streets, the strips as well. But COTA, you've got so much runoff room, so you can expect more cars to be 3 wide, 2 wide, however it wants to go, either in this league or in IRL. It works out amazingly. It's just the braking points there are insane. DRS streets are long as hell, so which obviously helps plenty of other drivers. I mean, Kevin, you can probably agree to that one. Kota is definitely a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. Also in the game, you can drive a lot of different lines in Kota, especially turn one. You can go really deep, and I think the last sector, the slow speed stuff, you can take different lines there. But to be honest, Las Vegas, it can be interesting because you have a lot of you have a very long straight, but if you look at real life, I don't think there were that many overtakes this year on Las Vegas.
I think there were yeah. Well, I remember the time that there was a huge crash with Lance Stroll, and that was a big one as well.
Yeah.
If we were ever to talk about a big crash, but yeah, that was a huge one as well. I mean, Daisy, you must have the exact same opinions on Kota. I mean, you were straight onto that one against Nedzo.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because Coda under Las Vegas over Coda. I just can't believe that because especially at the track, just looking at face value, it's just like a long DRS zone and everything. That kind of makes like over half the track or about half. It's just a long DRS straight and everything. It makes it entertaining, but I don't know. It's just something about it I just don't 100% agree with.
I mean, as a driver, you can make a difference more in Kota because there are way more corners than in Las Vegas.
I just think that because obviously I've been watching Formula One for as long as Cota's been on the calendar, since 2012, and it's just for me it's just hit or miss. Like even the races that are seen as good, like for example Hamilton's win in 2012, nothing really happened in that race. The same as like 2015 when we were even in the wet in 2015, nothing happened. 2017 when Raikkonen got his last win, nothing really happened apart from was that
2018? 2018 was his last win.
Did I say 2017? I meant 2018. Because I think it was the year that there was one of those years where Verstappen cut the corner and overtook.
Yeah, 2017.
That was 2017. Yeah, he cut the corner on the last lap, and it's just like, apart from those things, nothing really happens. Whereas in Vegas, there is, apart from this year, if we look at the previous 2 years, things have been happening pretty much all the time. Because of just how cold the track is and how much it forces the drivers to drive differently, and I do enjoy that. I do think that I'm going to maintain that it's the best track on the best American track on the calendar. I'd even go as far as saying that because we're talking about the American circuits, that Miami, in terms of real life products, is underrated because it's produced 3 or 4 decent enough races. And no one likes to talk about it because they like to say, "Oh, it's a car park," or "Oh, it's just another boring American circuit." And yes, it's a bit fake and it's a bit gimmicky with all the stuff that goes on around the track. But I believe that Miami is definitely an underrated circuit as well as Las Vegas, because I think people just like to hate for no reason. People just like to hate because they have preconceptions of the circuit or of the country or of anything really. And I just don't like it. I think that you have to go off the racing products, not off of whatever you think about American street circuits.
Well, I have to say, I do like Miami as a track. It's incredible, well, especially for the game as well. The action we had, for example, Boti Tiaz as well, saying the crazy lunges as well. That was incredible. I'm sure Kevin enjoyed that. I think possibly in the rear mirror, the side mirrors. You don't have a rear one in Formula 1 car. But yeah, no, I have to admit, being a Miami Dolphins fan, I do have to love Miami track. It's just, it's a really cool setup on how they do it. I mean, they had the little Lego F1 cars at that point as well, which was quite funny to watch. That was very good. But I think it's just the atmosphere there as well. The track is incredible, the atmosphere and the racing. That's the difference. We see lots of action at Miami, and strategy is the biggest one there as well, because there's just so many turns. There's not really time to cool down your tires. They will always overheat. And I think it may be you, Kevin, maybe Tiaz, who overheated their tires and were literally, it was like driving on ice.
It was me. I was on dry tires in wet, and it was literally impossible to drive. I mean, I think my setup was not that good because I spun like 2 times in that race, but I was very lucky because I still finished P3. But yeah, Toro and me were both struggling, and Tias was on Inters, I remember. So yeah, wrong tire choice.
Bro dropped his Massa Silverstone 2008 weekend.
Well, I mean, Daisy, were you at Miami.
Yeah, he crashed.
Oh yeah, I was I was the one who crashed. I mean, other than that, I do kind of believe Miami is a bit underrated. But driving experience in the game, I do not enjoy it.
Well, yeah, I can tell. Well, I mean, if we go there next season, I'm sure we can hope for a better round from. Well, I'm sure you're hoping for a better round.
I'll
as well.
definitely do better this time.
I mean, I think what's the are we still continue the debate, or is it the moving on to the next section?
We can continue to be fair, I'm trying to think. There's not really much else to debate about in the world of F1, because I say we segued from Vegas into that whole American circuits, yabba that kind of stuff.
I mean, what the guys do who do you guys think is the best driver ever in Formula One?
Fangio, and it's not very close.
Sorry, it's got to be Senna in my eyes.
Senna,
for me,
Senna's on my list.
For me, Verstappen.
Oh, we're going current.
I mean, he's definitely the best driver I've ever seen.
Yeah, but you've been watching since 2015.
I mean, I kind of agree with Verstappen as well, because I'm even nowhere, because I only started like late 2018. This is weird to think about, considering when you guys all started. I guess that Max is one of the best drivers right now. I guess the best if he does win a championship.
I mean, he's out driving his car. I mean, in 2021, he had the slower car against Hamilton, and now again he has a slower car, and he's still in the championship fight. So I think that shows how great he is.
It definitely is.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I will say Verstappen is he's currently at a 5th in my all-time list, but the drivers he's behind are all very good. As I said, Fangio is number 1 on my list. Then it's Alain Prost in 2nd, then Jim Clark, and then Michael Schumacher. So it's not like the guys he's behind are not very good. But yeah, he's definitely up there. If he continues on his current run of form, by the time he's like 30, 35, he'll definitely be pushing the guys in front of him for prosperity in my list, especially. But yeah, I wouldn't call him the greatest just yet, because again, he's only had 10, 11 seasons, and he's not. There are some seasons where he wasn't particularly perfect, like 2018, for example, where he was too busy crashing into everyone, or seasons where like he's not been fully fantastic, like 2017, like 2016, where although he was great, he wasn't like perfect. That's the thing. I think that's also why I don't rate Hamilton as highly, because for every great season he has an average or a bad season where he shouldn't be performing badly, and he is.
Yeah, it's definitely could definitely agree on that one.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. Just for questioning, where do you put him on your list of all-time greats?
Who?
Lewis Hamilton. Where do you put him on?
9th.
Because not 9.
Yeah. So my top 10 is, as I said, Fangio, Prost, Clark, Schumacher, Verstappen, Lauda, Senna, Stewart, and then Hamilton. Yeah. So as I said, because again, Lewis's best season 2015 was great. His second best season 2012 was fantastic. But then below that, it's just not. Most of it is just kind of either really kind of good seasons or mediocre seasons, like this year, for example. Last year, 2011, 2009. In the first half of 2009, his teammate was Heikki Kovalainen. Heikki Kovalainen was faster than him in qualifying trim. Like, when would you ever see someone like Verstappen getting out qualified in qualifying?
Bottas was also regularly beating Hamilton in 2020.
I mean, maybe not in 2020, but definitely like in 2019, I think it was. The average gap that Bottas had to Hamilton in race trim was 3.4 seconds. It's like that's way too close for someone who's Bottas's level of driving. And it pretty much just proves, like, again, Hamilton on his day and in some seasons he's fantastic and he can pull off great drives, but he's too inconsistent. I mean, we've seen it this season especially. Like, he's not just lost his pace, but he's lost his consistency. Like, when have we ever seen Verstappen qualify last on pure pace? I mean, we had Brazil, but that was more due to the setup and due to the car than it was due to his performance. Whereas like Hamilton qualified last this race, he's qualified badly so many times in the past 3 or 4 seasons since 2021 because he just can't adapt to the cars.
Yeah, but another reason why Verstappen is so great, I think, because his gap to his teammates are huge. Like Gasly, Albon, Tsunoda, Lawson, Perez, they are all demolished by Verstappen. Like they are almost every time 5-10 slower in quali and race trim. So I think that's also one reason why he's probably the best, because you never see this big gap in any team. Never.
Yeah, the only way you can counteract that really is the fact that, let's be real, Gasly, Perez, Lawson, Albon, they're not the greatest drivers. Again, Perez is definitely the best of the lot, and even then, he's a guy who won a couple of races on merit because, or in Force India he won that race, or Force India Racing Point he won that race, basically because of strategy. But he did get a couple of race wins at Red Bull that were deserved. A couple of pole positions here and there as well. So he could pull off good performances, but most of Verstappen's teammates haven't been fantastic. Whereas again, you talk about gaps to teammates. I mean, Schumacher was very good at that, but the teammates that Schumacher, for example, he had guys like Eddie Irvine, Rubens Barrichello, who, although they weren't world championship level drivers, they were still very good on a level similar to or slightly above Sergio Perez. And that's part of the reason, because again, you look at Lewis Hamilton against his teammates. People say that the reason why Lewis sometimes lost to his teammates was because his teammates were actually good and because they were champions. But for example, Prost proved that Alain Prost had 5 world champions as a teammate and he beat them all, including Senna. So it's like people try and say that having great teammates makes it excusable to lose to them. Isn't really the case. But then again, I think Verstappen does need to go up against a truly generational driver to really hammer it home about how good he is, because until then, people will just use that as a constant comeback. So if he goes up against, for example, a Leclerc, a Russell, again, even
pre-washed.
Pardon?
Piastri before everything happened.
Yeah, maybe Piastri or Norris again. Yeah, but he needs to go up against one of those kind of drivers, or if guys like not Leclerc, sorry, Hadjar, Behrman, Antonelli, if they come up, if they start showing up and winning championships, if they'll then to move to Max's stable. Yeah, it would kind of cement Max's legacy, because that's pretty much the only thing you can take away from him, is the fact that yes, he's beaten all of his teammates this convincingly, but the teammates he's had are a bit stinky compared to all the other champions and all of the other greats that we talked about. As I said, like your Schumachers, like your Prosts, like your Fangios, like your Jim Clarks. He doesn't have the same caliber of teammates to go up against. And again, yeah, that's basically the only thing you can really hold against him, as well as his racecraft, to be honest. Again, although he's not always at fault for these incidents that he gets involved in, he does not help himself. Like what he did in Mexico last year, it's you don't need to do that. You're already pretty much guaranteed the title. Why are you risking damaging your reputation?
I get that what he did in Mexico last year, because he was defending his title, and he didn't have the car to. I think Norris could have won that title if he didn't bottle it, because if Verstappen didn't hold up Norris in Mexico, he would have won definitely 100%. And Norris would have won Mexico, because the gap in the end to Sainz was less than 2 seconds, I think, in the end. So he would have definitely won that Grand Prix. And it's, I think, only because he won in Brazil and in Qatar, I think, he clinched the championship. But the McLaren was definitely the faster car in the last half of the season.
Yeah, the funny thing about 2024 is, for me, is after the Miami Grand Prix, or either after or before the Miami Grand Prix, when Norris won his first race, the gap between him and Verstappen was 50 points in the championship. By the end of the 2024 season, the gap was 74 points. So Max actually extended the gap from when Norris didn't have the best car to when he did have the best car, which is quite kind of funny, and it's very Norris-esque. But yeah, Norris is one of those drivers where on his day he can do amazing performances. We saw that in Mexico this year. where he just blasted off into the distance and no one could catch him. But yeah, he is definitely a bit too error prone for to be a truly generational driver. But yeah, if Max was to go up against him as a teammate or up against Piastri, Leclerc, Russell, and he was to bury him into the ground, I think that he would essentially put to bed any sort of rumours that he's always going to be the number one driver pretty much in that Red Bull seat. But if he was to have another number one driver or another driver who would not allow that sort of status, then he would definitely put himself up there. The only problem is he's in a weird generation of drivers where, like, you look at the 2010s, for example, the 2000s and the 2010s, you had guys like Alonso, Raikkonen, Hamilton, and Vettel, who were all part of the same kind of group, who were all together on the grid at the same time. You had, in the 90s, you had Schumacher, you had Senna, you had all those guys, and then they extended back into the 80s with Prost. This generation of, like, 2015 onwards hasn't really had many great drivers. Obviously, Hamilton came from the era before. And apart from Verstappen, you have like Russell, Leclerc, Norris, Piastri. They're good and they're potential champions, but they aren't generational kind of drivers. The same way that Raikkonen was, the same way that Vettel was, Alonso, Prost, Senna. He is in a weaker generation, and again, that's not his fault. He doesn't get to choose which drivers he goes up against. But I think that could also be held against him. The same way that, for example, even though I put Fangio as the best, he also had a pretty weak field. The fact that he only had maybe one or two other drivers that could match him on a day. But yeah, but there are a couple of things you can hold against Max. As I said, that his teammates, the general grid isn't as great as it could be. But yeah, it is definitely the case that Verstappen, he is up there for me.
But the grid is definitely closer than it has ever been. Because
absolutely. Absolutely, the average driver in 2025 is better than any driver in history. But this is what I always like to say: the field spread, like the worst drivers in Formula One, always come from the previous eras. Whether it be the 1990s when we had a bunch of pay drivers, 1950s when there was a lot of drivers who literally just paid to enter a Formula One race. But the guys at the top are always the best because we've seen throughout history that drivers who compete in one era are also good in the next era. Like, for example, I mean, you could talk about guys like Graham Hill, who was competitive for like 10 years when the average career saw people only be competitive for about 7. You've seen drivers like, for example, Niki Lauda, perfect example. He started in an era where cars were essentially death traps and they'd just send you off into a wall and you'd die. But then 10 years later, he was still competing at the top. Like Senna, Prost, they all competed throughout various eras and were fast in them all. So we know that the drivers of one generation are just as good as the drivers from the next generation. It's just that they never that people seem to think that old drivers were somehow bad when they weren't. They were nowhere near that. But yeah, Verstappen's definitely up there.
I mean, 100%. Verstappen's up there. We've got obviously plenty of other drivers up there as well. But I think that's our cue to move on to driver of the day. I think.
So is this driver of the day for the both F1 and for the VD Racing League?
Yeah. So Kevin Van Dijk. I mean, you could probably. Because you were Nezo, if you remember, if you do remember the race, you are more than welcome to give off your driver of the day. But Kevin Van Dijk, you were racing in it. So who was your driver of the day for Las Vegas Grand Prix of VD Racing League?
I think definitely Botti, because he won the race from P19. So yeah, if he's not driver of the day, then I don't know. So yeah, he drove a fantastic race. Very good strategy from him. I think he deserves it. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, Ned. So, do you remember the race enough to give a driver of the day?
The issue is, it's always the case that you could have like the greatest race in VD Racing League history, and I would still probably forget it. That's the problem, and it's not because I don't. It's not because I don't want to remember. It's just that I just don't. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about it, but
too much in the week, I think.
Yeah, but Botti, I expect when I saw him coming through the field and when I saw that he gained like 10, 12, 15 positions, I thought he was going to bin it, because if he could bin it fighting against the top guys who know how to battle and are super fast and super strong and know how to racecraft each other, how is he going to do against someone who maybe isn't as experienced, especially dealing with fast drivers and knowing where they break, for example? But he executed really well. I didn't see him make any mistakes. He was definitely a lot more polished than he was, and I think Kevin will definitely. I can't remember if Kevin was. No, Kevin wasn't fighting him in Miami. He was too busy stinking up the gaff. But when he was fighting in Miami, you saw how sloppy he was, and you saw he was constantly locking up, constantly going for moves that weren't on, cutting corners, and it's like he looked like a driver who would just practice time trial all day rather than actually practicing in race trim. But Vegas, he fixed that pretty much. I hope to see more of him because I think if Botti can fix his racecraft on a permanent basis and can cut out his mistakes, I think that he's easily just as good as Kevin, Tiaz, and Toro, if not better, because he is genuinely like rocket ship levels of quick. So yeah, I'll put him as driver of the day.
Well, Kevin definitely heard that one, was getting a bit shaky, I think, after hearing that one as well. Hopefully we can see him more of next season. Which will, well, obviously isn't far away now as well. But we move on to the IRL, should we say F1? Your driver of the day, Stay Daisy, you'll start us off on this one. Who was your driver of the day for the Las Vegas Grand Prix?
I gotta be honest. I was not able to watch that race. I cannot give an opinion on that because I only like all the result sheets and everything. But like I wasn't able to like watch the race, so I can't really give a formal opinion about it. Unfortunately.
Fair enough. To be fair enough. Well, Kevin, go on then. Kevin, what? Who was your driver of the day?
I think I actually have two, but I will go for one. Antonelli, I think, because he drove from like P17 to P3. I know he got the 5-second time penalty for jump start, but that was basically almost bullshit because I think it was a few millimeters he drove. I think the movement was tiny, but yeah, he drove a very good race. His pace on 48 lap Old Harts was insane because he was catching Russell a lot in the last few laps. But I know Russell had a steering wheel issue, but I think Antonelli could have finished second if he qualified higher.
Definitely. Well, Nezza, who was your driver of the day then?
I think Antonelli's definitely a good pick, but I would just say that yeah, he was good on 48 lap Old Hards. But remember, these are Pirelli tires; they don't make any sense. You can sometimes have mediums be faster than softs over one lap. You can sometimes have softs last longer than hards. We've seen that in previous races where softs went 40 laps and hards went 30. So again, I'm not taking anything away from Kimi. He did a fantastic job. He made his way up through the field. He did essentially what Lewis did last year when Lewis started lower down and drove to a really good second place. Except I think it was probably a slightly better performance than what Lewis did. And he's definitely coming around, Antonelli. I thought in the early parts of the season when he was quite a bit of a way off George, I thought maybe he'd been promoted too early. But now he's starting to come around and he's starting to do really well. It's between him and Verstappen essentially because it just is like Verstappen. He might have inherited the lead at turn one, and this in modern Formula One, your pace is so determined by your track position nowadays. It's ridiculous to the point where you can be the faster driver, but if you can't get past, you're not showing that pace. So it's between Verstappen and Antonelli. I think for semantics and for the story, you probably go for Antonelli, but I think in terms of overall drives, you go for Verstappen. Because, yeah, although Antonelli did get that 5-second penalty, and he didn't gain 5 seconds from the jump start, but it is a jump start, and you can't be making those mistakes. It is an error from his side. Even if it is so minuscule, it's still an error. So I would say Verstappen.
I mean, yeah, well, for me, it's definitely Antonelli as well. Just an awesome drive from him. The consistency he brought up, obviously just the unlucky penalty occurred, but still... I'm sure he's pretty happy after finding out both the McLarens had been disqualified. So he obviously moved himself up to third place. So not a bad run for him. Another driver really who struck me was Isaac Hadjar. I mean, finishing P6 at let me say, a pretty intense track he drove amazingly in my eyes.
Another driver, maybe Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg, he did a really good race because Hamilton was behind him. I think they had the same tires, and the gap started growing a lot. I don't know why, but the Sauber was definitely not faster than the Ferrari. So I think Hulkenberg did a very good race.
I agree with that one as well. I was gonna talk about him as well because he is, well, stakes highest point scorer, and obviously getting a podium in Silverstone was the highlight of his year, definitely, which blew social media through the roof, especially for him and all the other drivers as well. But I think really the most unlucky rookie we've really had is Ollie Behrman. He's had some, and I know he's Nedzo's favourite driver, but he's had some highs and lows, Nedzo, hasn't he? He's not been top, as like all the other rookies have been up pretty much in the mid pack, ranging from like P5 to probably P8, I think, or maybe P10. Around that area, Behrman's never been too high up.
I wouldn't say that's true. I think that's quite reductionist, because if you look at the guys, let's look at the other rookies then. So Hadjar started off the season pretty error prone. Like, he didn't even start the first race in Australia because he crashed out on the formation.
He crashed out, yeah.
And Hadjar has been the most consistent of the lot, I'd say, but he's still not been consistent. There have been races where he's been behind Lawson. There have been races where he's just been completely off the pace. There have been races where he's not been doing well. And also remember, apart from Antonelli and the Mercedes, the Racing Bulls is probably the fastest car that any of the rookies have. So he's going to look better, and he's going to get those good results consistently because he's in a better car. Again, I'm not taking it away from him. I think that he's probably been. I put him second as in the kind of a rookies list this season, behind Behrman, because again, you talk about how Behrman's not been up in those good positions, but we saw Mexico, he got 4th place. He scored points for 5 races in a row. No Haas driver in history other than Behrman has five consecutive point scoring races with Haas in a row. He's also on track to get the most points in for a season for a Haas driver in history. He has been, especially recently, he's been super consistent. And yes, don't get me wrong, he's had mistakes and he's had errors. I'm not going to deny that. He had a spin in Australia that no one saw. He had Britain where he qualified low because of his mistake in practice. But he has also been really unfairly treated by the stewards. Like, the amount of grid penalties he's got. Like, the last time before Behrman got a 10-place grid penalty for his infringement during Monaco practice. The last time that anyone got a 10-place grid penalty for anything other than engine changes was 13 years before that. And it was because no one had ever done anything severe enough to get a 10-place grid penalty. Yet apparently overtaking someone at 2 miles an hour under a red flag because they decided to go 2 miles an hour themselves, apparently that's worth 10 places. It's like, no, it's not. Let's be realistic. He's been unfairly treated by the stewards. We saw that in Kota when Antonelli pushes him off track, and apparently it's his fault, so he has to get a 10-place grid penalty, 10-second time penalty. In Monza, when Sainz spun him out and spun himself out, he gets a 10-second time penalty. It's ridiculous. It's just stupid. I will say that I think Behrman's been the best rookie this season because his highs have been the highest of anyone, and his lows, people think that his lows were all his fault when they weren't. Hadjar's second, then I'd go for Colapinto third, Antonelli fourth, Lawson fifth, Bortoletto. No, actually, no, I'd switch Bortoletto fifth, Lawson sixth, and then Doohan.
It doesn't really count. He's not even racing anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say that one driver who you haven't talked about, when you first said a driver that had been kind of underrated this weekend, I initially thought you were going to say Lance Stroll, because in qualifying he was on course to get into Q3. He was beating Alonso. Bearing in mind,
why was he on Inters in Q2?
Yeah, bear in mind that Lance Stroll never beats anyone in qualifying. The one thing he's never been good at is qualifying. Yet he was on course to beat Alonso for the first time. I think it's in like 30 races or something ridiculous like that in qualifying. They put him on the Inters and he qualifies really low. I think that without that, considering also it was a bit of a topsy-turvy race with all the disqualifications, he was easily on for a top 5 or even maybe not, because I'm not sure where did Alonso finish? Does anyone remember?
I think P11.
Okay, maybe not a top 5 then, but he could have easily got points because he was better than Alonso up until that point. And then Gabriel Bortoletto brought out his torpedo and just blew him up at turn 1. But I think Lance was definitely an underrated driver this weekend. And it just proves, because Lance has been having a bit of a resurgent year, because like in 2024, he was a bit naff, and in 2023, he was awful. But now he's coming back, and I think that people have been saying like, oh, if Newey gives Alonso a great car in 2026, then he's going to win the title. I think that if Aston Martin have the best car next year, Stroll will beat Alonso to a title, because he's been the one. Like, did you remember at the start of the season when Lance had about 30 or 40 points and Alonso had hardly any because he was too busy crashing out of races? Lance is a lot better than people give him credit for. And I'm currently scripting a YouTube video where I'm going to say why Lance Stroll is so underrated, because he is. He beat Vettel in the head-to-heads as teammates. He was.
I mean, Vettel was not great in the end. His last season, he was definitely.
He wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible either. He also, this is going to upset Martin, but he was better than Perez in the years they were his teammates. He was just as good as Massa.
No, Stroll was not better than Perez. No, what are you on about?
Yeah,
20. You know the points gap between Stroll. They lost third place or second place in the constructors because Stroll didn't score enough points.
Using point standings to determine how good a driver was isn't always the best thing. But Stroll lost so many points that year, 2020, due to things outside of his control. There were, like, if you look at the head-to-heads of races they both finished without any issues or any sort of strategy bluffs, Stroll was ahead. That was the case. Where, don't get me wrong, Perez was also great. It was his best year of his career, and he wasn't bad by any stretch. That's not what I'm saying. But in the races they both finished without issues, Stroll won the head-to-head.
I mean, Hulkenberg, how do you say it? He drove because Perez was ill in Silverstone, and he instantly qualified P3. So I think that shows how bad Stroll is.
But Stroll, again, as I said, Stroll's not a good qualifier. And then in the race, Stroll finished ahead of him. So why bother talking about qualifying?
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, the strategy that day, I remember that was very bad strategy, Carl.
The strategy was the exact same for both drivers. I've been literally researching this for a video. The strategy was the exact same. Or at least it wasn't different. It wasn't different enough to constitute it being like. This is the thing, Lance. This is something I've been looking, especially during 2019 when he was teammates with Perez, and I think in 2021, the amount of times they put him on a different strategy to his teammate and it ended up not working was kind of baffling. Like the amount of 2 stops he did when his teammate did a 1 stop and he just couldn't gain the time back. I mean, I'm not trying to suggest that Perez was some sort of awful driver. He wasn't. He was still very good, and he was getting those points more regularly than Lance. But it was because Lance was having bad strategies or having problems with mechanical issues or whatever. And again, as I said, he is a bad qualifier.
I remember the last race in 2020. Perez had an engine issue. He retired in the race. So yeah. I mean, he had bad luck.
Everyone has those issues, but if you look at, as I said, if you look at the races that both finished without any sort of like technical gremlins or strategy bluffs, Stroll was better. 2020 especially, maybe not 2019, because Perez was decently good that year and Stroll was just getting into the groove of things. But yeah, essentially, I'm currently in the researching part of 2023, which is essentially like Stroll's worst season. And even in 2023, there was a couple of races, even if only a handful, a couple of races where he did outperform Fernando. And this year, I mean, don't get that. This is the case. This is actually the reverse case of what we've just been talking about, where point standings don't tell the full story.
Then you could say the same about 2020 Bottas season, because he had also a lot of bad luck. He was leading Imola, and then in the race he drove, I think, over debris of the Ferrari, and he lost that victory. He definitely would have won that race. In Bahrain, he got a puncture. The second Bahrain race, they messed up with the tires.
Yes. It does essentially prove it doesn't. It drives me up the wall, and it annoys me so much when people just use point standings without any sort of context. Obviously, they can tell you most things, but they don't tell you everything. It's like, for example, when people try and say that Schumacher was washed when he retired in 2012. Like Schumacher in 2012, bearing in mind he was in a Mercedes that wasn't as good as it would later go on to be. He lost about 100 points due to reliability, and people say that he was worse than Rosberg, when in fact, when they both finished on track, he was about half a minute ahead on average. And it's like, no, he wasn't worse. And it is a sort of similar thing with Stroll. Again, he's been worse than Alonso in 2023, obviously, and in 2024. But this year, he's been very close. And since Alonso's just going to keep getting older, and Stroll's just going to keep getting better because he's younger. So I do think that if they both get in a championship-winning car, especially when Lance's worst trait, his qualifying, if he's in a fast car, even a bad qualifying will still be 5th, 6th place. So he can just qualify 5th or 6th, make up those positions early on, and then overtake Alonso in the races, which is when he's better in the races. So I do think that Lance will push Alonso for a title, if not win it, but he might push him for it. And I do think that Lance is definitely underrated. People say he's by far the worst driver on the grid when he's not even the worst driver on the grid. He's not even bottom 5, I don't think. But yeah. I think it is
Right.
definitely the case that he's underrated.
Well, I think we've had all the amazing F1 facts from our amazing Nedzo. Thank you all so much for listening to our first podcast. We'll be back next week talking about Bahrain from the league and Qatar also from real life. So don't forget, the league race starts on Friday. It starts every Friday until the season ends, and then we have a break, and then we're back again. But it will be 7:45 CET, but obviously that UK time will be 6:45. Don't forget to join our Discord and follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever you call it. Thank you so much to Nedzo, Kevin, Stay Daisy, and Yele joining in as well. But until then,
Thanks for
I hope
having me.
you all have a good night, and we'll see you next Tuesday and this Friday as well. So see you later.